Today's topic is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the beginning of change from within. We often hear nothing ever remains the same, that change is the only constant. Then why do we find it so difficult to deal with changes even when we know that we need to make a certain change in our lives for the better? I think that the answer lies in the daily routine that we create for ourselves. Let's take John for example. His daily routine is to wake up at 6 a.m., make a cup of coffee, get ready for work, and leave by 7 a.m. On his way, he picks up McDonald's for breakfast. As he gets to work, he usually starts the day with a morning cigarette. He then goes back to the computer and eats his breakfast, an egg and sausage muffin with pancakes and syrup, along with a hash brown. His work requires him to stay on the computer for most part of the day, so he finds himself sitting in front of the computer about 6 to 7 hours a day while at work. For lunch, at around 12:30 p.m., he goes out to his office cafeteria with his colleagues, followed by his after-lunch cigarette, which he usually has with a cup of coffee. John works until 5 p.m. on most days and then heads to the gym for about an hour. He drinks 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day and has about the same number of cigarettes a day. His doctor has advised him to cut down on or stop smoking, but John has not considered quitting. He's 35 years old and he has been following the same routine for the last 8 years. Let's try to illustrate another example. Lisa. Lisa is 40 years old. She works as a receptionist at a very big firm somewhere in America. Lisa was diagnosed with hypertension and diabetes 3 years ago. At the time, her doctor had asked her to start taking metformin and hydrochlorothiazide. Lisa's typical diet includes takeaway food that is high in salt. She likes to keep chocolate at her desk for the guests, but finds herself eating those chocolates most of the time. Lisa is unmarried, has been at the same job, following the same routine for over 10 years. She does not do any physical exercise, knows that she is overweight, and lately she has been feeling slightly depressed. She wishes to make changes in her life but finds herself stuck in the daily routine. What is the difference between changes that we experience and changes that require initiative for self-development and self-improvement? Throughout our lives, we undergo changes growing up. We experience them when we change schools, relocate to a new neighborhood, get a new job, go through a breakup, lose someone close to us, and the list goes on. These are examples of changes that we experience. A change for self-development always begins from within. In other words, self-awareness is the beginning of change from within. It starts with self-realization, and it is the beginning of the revolution from within. I find that the only way to confront our shortcomings is by becoming aware of them, to shed light on them and acknowledge that they exist in the first place. It's easier said than done, especially if something is rooted very deep within our unconscious. An alcoholic knows that this is bad for him, but is that the same as becoming aware of his alcoholism? The answer is no. For the same reason that the gambler knows he has a problem, but still gambles, the alcoholic knows he has a problem and he still drinks. How can someone know that they have an addiction or a habit and still be unaware of it? The answer is that the habit has now become part of the unconscious. The same unconscious that's responsible for breathing, making our heart beat, responsible for our recurrent worries, in charge of our fears and desires. Self-awareness, like we said earlier, is the beginning of change from within. Self-awareness. Since we all know of our own habits, we do not need a reminder from anyone else. In other words, our daily routine as well as our habits over time get encrypted in our unconscious to the point that we know we do them, but at the moment of that act, our unconscious takes over. Therefore, when a smoker lights a cigarette, he's unconscious of it. Just like we are when we pick up our smartphones and begin to browse through our Facebook or Instagram. Now that we know the problem, let's discuss how we can become aware of it and bring it to our conscious present moment. Since we all know our own habits, we don't need a reminder from anyone else. We need a reminder from ourselves when we are engaging in our habits. Let's try to illustrate this. The next time you find yourself engaging in your habit, try to focus on how it makes you feel. Bring your attention to the present moment. Focus on your breathing, your thoughts. Notice the subtle changes that are occurring from this habit. Bring your awareness to the act of engaging in this activity. Don't let unconscious take over. Try to be aware of the present moment. Start slowly and try to practice this every time you engage in that habit. Ask yourself after you're done with the habit the following questions. How did this become part of your daily routine? Whether this habit of yours is benefiting you in any way. Are you still doing this habit for the same reason that got you started in the first place? Has it been enough, or would you like to continue with this habit? You see, the detrimental effect of smoking do not begin to show until approximately 20 plus years of smoking, but the harm begins within a week. The same can be said about sedentary lifestyle, cell phone addiction, eating unhealthy, etc. Most health conditions are diagnosed between the ages of 35 to 45, but most habits are developed in our 20s. There's a correlation between these numbers, and I hope you see it. No 2 days are alike in all reality, but our daily routines make them look alike. Our awareness seems to be lost as we navigate through life on autopilot. The purpose of this podcast entry is to remind ourselves that self-awareness is the beginning of change from within. Thanks for listening. Team Go Unify. This is Ankit Sharma.